In 2024, I took on the challenge of building 74 church websites. Times are changing and your website should be changing too. How can you make sure that you're keeping up with these trends, and how can you make sure that you're effectively reaching people in your area? My name's Jay and I'm the lead designer at REACHRIGHT. I've built hundreds of church websites and I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I've learned along the way. If you find this video useful, I want to invite you to make sure you subscribe and leave a comment if you have a question about anything that we're talking about today. Perhaps the first thing that I've learned, and really what is going to make your website unique, is to make sure that you are being you. Every church is different, so every church website should be different. A mistake that I see a lot of people make is finding a big church or some mega church and saying, ooh, I like their site, I'm gonna make it like theirs. But the problem with that is they're not you. You want to be unique to you. When people visit your website, they should feel what it's like to be a part of your church community and to be a part of those ministries that are unique and special to you. The best church websites that I've worked with weren't afraid to go outside of the box. If you're a bold church, make sure that you're using bold fonts. If you're more traditional, maybe perhaps using more traditional fonts and photography. Once you make sure that you're being true to yourself, you also want to make sure that you are adding content that is quality to your website. One of the best ways that you can do this is to keep it up to date. So many churches kind of have a set it and forget it approach. There is no such thing as a set it and forget it website. If you want your website to be useful, you need to ensure that you're continually adding content and updating your website to make sure that it's up to date. One of the ways that you can make sure you do this is to meet with your church leaders or volunteers regularly to find out what's new and what has changed, and encourage them to take new photography and new photos. There is no reason that your church website should not be up to date with what is happening at your church right now. And there are also plenty of tools out there to make this process easier. File sharing services such as Dropbox or Google Drive, right? Where you can share folders with different ministry leaders, volunteers, leaders, and have them regularly update with photography, or using communication tools like Slack or even just email, things that for upcoming events or changes to ministries. Perhaps one of the most useful ways to keep your church website up to date is by using the content that you already have created and taking it a little further. Take your sermons and create a sermon archive on your website where people can browse previous series, they can browse by previous topics or speakers, but even go one better and perhaps turn these sermons into a blog. A blog is one of the best ways to add content up to your website continuously, which is going to have a ton of search engine optimization or SEO impact on your website. Content is king, so do not set it and forget it. Make sure you're keeping your website up to date and adding relevant, engaging content regularly. The next thing I learned when building these websites is user experience is really important. Now, when we hear user experience, we oftentimes want to make it complicated and design rich or design heavy. You can actually do too much design and over design your website. I tend to lean the other way and keep it simple. One of the best things that you can do when having a user experience is to always ensure that you have a mobile first approach. You want to keep your website mobile friendly. That means you want to ensure that your website looks good and functions well on all devices, especially mobile devices and tablets. There's a crazy stat out there, and I believe it to be true, that over 80% of your website traffic is going to come from mobile devices. So you want to make sure that your navigations aren't too complicated, that pages aren't being buried in places where people probably aren't going to see them at all. Complicated menus, navigations. You want to keep all this to a minimum and avoid unnecessary features so that people can find the content that is relevant to them. And so when you're designing your site, you want a good homepage that drives people deeper into your website, into the content that's relevant to them, while keeping it mobile friendly and avoiding those complicated navigations with drop downs and sidebars and all these things. You want to keep it simple. If you want to see that your website is hitting all the marks, including some of these tips that I'm sharing right now, be sure to check out our free website review. It's completely free, and we'll take a look at your website and let you know where you're hitting the mark and maybe where you're falling a little bit short. It only takes a couple minutes, and we want to make sure that your website is reaching people the right way. And so be sure to go to REACHRIGHTstudios.com and click Get My Free Website Review. The next thing that you want to make sure that you don't overlook on your church website is to make sure that essential information is readily available. I am shocked by how many churches don't include very simple things like service time information or church location information on their website. And not just in one place, but really throughout. Effective strategies are to include some of this information in your header or definitely within your footer. Include service location, service times. The reason those are good places to have it is because then they'll actually be on every page of your website. And so when visitors or people are browsing their website, they can quickly and easily see, oh yeah, they gathered this Sunday at 10 a.m. or whatever it is, right? You want to make sure it's readily available. I would also include this information on key pages, like your homepage or your about page, where it is repeated information, yes, but that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's good to repeat key information throughout your website. And so having that essential information readily available on your website is key. The next thing that I've learned that you really just don't want to miss out on is making sure all the media on your website reflects you. This kind of goes back to the very first thing, which is don't be afraid to be you. But really, you want to avoid things like stock video and stock photography as much as possible. Something that we often say is the best photography is candid photos that capture people performing the values of your church. And so, for instance, if your church values being friendly, then capture people welcoming one another, greeting one another, engaging one another in conversation. You know, when we talk about an average church website, we're probably talking about 30 to 40, at a minimum, high quality photos of your church and different ministries in action. We love to do things like background videos on the homepage to give people an instant view and an instant glimpse of different ministries, of different things that your church does. It gives visitors and people that potentially are going to visit your church an instant glimpse of what your church is like. And then lastly, perhaps the best thing that you can do for your website is not try to do too much. You know, church websites are powerful, but oftentimes people make the mistake of trying to make them do everything. They build them for with the visitor in mind, but they also build them for their membership and as a resource. Church websites really aren't meant to do everything. And when you try to do everything, you're really not doing anything well. You want to have a primary call to action, which really answers the question, what is the one thing that we want people to do when they visit our website? You want to include that call to action in your navigation, perhaps in the very first section of the homepage of your websites. A good call to action for churches is new here, ? Right? It's inviting, it's engaging, and if someone is considering visiting your church, they are enticed and really wanting to click that new here button to find out how they can plan for their first visit, what to expect. Answer frequently asked questions. Include a video that would welcome people on that page. A primary call to action is key to your website. And so don't miss out. What is the one thing? What is the one thing you want people on your website to do? You know, there are a lot of things that go into making a website great. And we've gone through just some of the key things that I've learned, but one of the other great things to do is to make sure you have awesome SEO or search engine optimization. Be sure to check out this video on how to get your content out there and to see your search results higher on search rankings so more people can find your website and you can continue to reach people the right way.